back with yet another just one layer cake quilt. Today I'm going to be using Kansas Trouble Quilters. I think this is Wheatland. Yes, Wheatland by Moda, but you can use any layer cake for this. You can also use scraps, just cut them into 10-inch squares. You can make your own layer cakes. I actually have a video on that if you want to check that out too. I'll link it below. There's all kinds of options, but we're going to be using this today. It's so much fun. Now, before I show you the process, I just want to put a disclaimer out there that this isn't what you think it is. At least it's not what I thought it was, okay? Ready? We're gonna be using these. They are not paper piecing. They're not paper piecing. That's what I thought they were. So please, please stick with me because you're gonna love these. These are awesome. Not sponsored, nothing. I got these at the local quilt shop. I saw them and I was like, ooh, they look interesting. I was pleasantly surprised to find out it wasn't paper piecing because I've used the, what were the cake mixes, I think, by Moda, and I'm not a huge fan of those. They're okay, but this is the bomb, and I'll be buying more of these. They have a bunch of different ones. These are the Tree Quilt Paper by Holt, and Riley Blake puts them out. They're so cool. Now, there is a little bit of wonkiness. You have to trust me. I'm gonna take you through it. I'm gonna show you all the tips and tricks. I've already made a whole bunch of these. I have them here. Look, I made them because I wanted to learn how to do it, and I used the Kansas Trouble, so yeah. I also made some with some scraps because they're so much fun. But anyway, I'm digressing yet again. These are so much fun, so forgiving, even if you're a beginner, but you do have to be a little, what's the word I want? Open. Let's say open to them being a little wonky until we trim them up. Okay, and you have to have that uncomfortable feeling. If you're a perfectionist with quilting, you're gonna get a little uncomfortable during this, but it's gonna be okay, and I'm gonna walk you through it, and you're gonna have beautiful blocks like this when you're done that are all squared up to 8.5-inch squares. It's gonna be worth it. Before we dig in, my name is Chris O'Neill from Sew the Distance. Thank you for joining me for this. I'm so excited about this. All right, these papers also have a pattern on the back, so you can use that. I didn't buy the supplies to do the borders. I probably could. I might still do that. I knew I was going to be making a bunch more, so I might make my quilt a little bigger. I'm not sure. The quilt without borders, so just the blocks, will measure 48 by 56. So that'll be 6 across and 7 down. The pattern in the packet makes a quilt that's 61 by 69. So it's a little bit smaller, not using the borders. Totally up to you though. Also, you don't use all 42 of these, so you can split this packet with a friend or a couple friends. Okay, it'll make sense. Oh my gosh, so much fun. It's so cool the way this comes together. Also, there's a specialty ruler that you can get for this project. I'm not using that. I figured out how to do it with my regular ruler. If you want to use it, absolutely get it. It might be worth it. I'm not sure, but I figured out how to use it. I'm going to share that with you on how I'm doing it. These blocks will be 8.5 unfinished, so when they're in this state, it'll be 8.5 by 8.5. When they are put together, it'll be 1/2 inch smaller, of course, because you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all the sides, so it'll be an 8-inch block when it's put together. All right, I think that's it. Let's open up our layer cake and start sorting and getting everything ready for cutting and get started. Oh, I forgot, supplies. So you need, of course, your general quilting supplies. You need an iron, neutral thread, a new needle, rotary cutter, rotary blade. New rotary blade's always good. You are going to be cutting through paper, just putting it out there. I like to use a fresh blade when I'm doing this because it does give a nice clean cut, but this pattern or these papers are so forgiving, so forgiving. I mean, it's amazing. You really don't have to even worry about that if you don't want to. You will also need a ruler that is bigger than 8.5 inches square. That works best. I'm going to be using a 12.5-inch square ruler. A rotating mat is great, or a small mat that you can turn, or a table that you can walk around to cut as we're cutting. Another thing I like to use are design boards that I can take right to my sewing machine. These have fuzzies all over them. Just ignore the fuzzies. This is great. It will, again, make sense as we're stacking things up. All this is foam core that I got at the Dollar Tree, and then batting, scrap piece of batting, and this is duct tape. That's all it is, pretty duct tape that I taped around it. That's all. It's so easy to make. And then they stack and everything. So that's always good. If you don't have this, You could use a piece of cardboard, something that's big enough that you can transport it to the sewing machine is always good, or a tray or whatever. All right, now let's start sorting. Let's open it up and see. Oh my goodness. These colors are so pretty, but you could use any colors you want. This has a Christmas feel, but you could use it any time of year, I think. All right, so we got all kinds. Oh my goodness, they're so pretty. Oh, look at them all, such great colors. The next step that I like to do is separate these into colors because we want to have a nice mix with our trees, and we're going to be making sets of 3. But first, let's separate them into the colors, which this particular set is already kind of separated into colors. So these are like black or dark blue, and then we have some navy, and then the reds. And then I'm going to put these dark browns with it too, with the reds, because they're kind of the same hue, sort of. All right, next I'm going to do the orange and yellows, the beiges, and the greens. And I'm going to put this one here with the beiges because it has like a beige background. And just depending on what layer cake you use, this is just a good idea because we're going to get a nice variety this way. So the next step after you sort them is to make sets of 3. And you want to have some contrasting prints, but you also want to try to not overthink it too because you will drive yourself crazy. So I'm going to just set them up into sets of 3. And like I said, it makes it easier when they are already in color because I can pick right from it. So like these two go nicely together, and maybe this one, which looks really nice. So that will be one set. And I'll go through and do that with all of these. You can overthink this. So try not to overthink it. You know what, I'm going to do a maroon. Not too bad, but it's all going to come together beautifully. And just keep going. So I have 14 sets of 3. That's one layer cake. And I try to keep it nice and balanced with lights, mediums, darks, as best as I could. So I wouldn't put like 2 blues together necessarily, but if that's the look you're looking for, go for it however you want to do it. And each layer cake, of course, is different, so depending on what you get. All right, I'm going to take one of these stacks, I'm going to set the others aside, and I'm also going to take one of these papers. These papers have wax on the back, they're just wax paper. That's all they are. And we're going to iron this on to the top of the 3. And I'm just going to use my nails and kind of get it all lined up as best as possible. It's so forgiving though, don't worry about it. I'm going to take my trusty old mat here, and I'm going to take this sheet with the shiny side down. You can feel it, and I'm going to lay it directly on top. Now you can see that the edges, around the edges, you can see the pinked edge. Don't worry about it. I promise this is all going to work out. It's going to be wonderful. You're not even going to think about it. We're going to take a hot iron and just iron this on. Like that. So on these sheets, it tells you how to cut them, which is great too. It tells you your first cut is here, second and third are here, the 4th cut and the 5th cut. This 4th cut's probably one of the most important ones. You don't want to cut this one first because you'll cut into this. So definitely follow this direction. And I'm going to put this stack carefully and line it back up. And if you want to, you can use these papers one on each, but you don't need to. And this is on my rotating mat. Like I said, you can have a small mat and turn it, that's okay too. All right, our first cut is here. So I'm just gonna turn this and line this up right here and cut. And I'm cutting through everything, just like that. I'm just going to slide this out of the way a little bit. We're going to turn it again. And our second cut's here. And I'm lining up the line on my ruler on the top edge because I know it's straight. My second cut, make sure I get through them all. My third cut is here. Awesome. Now my fourth cut is right here. I'm going to move this down a little bit, keeping them together. Move that out of the way. And this is my final cut. That's it. There we go. We have all our pieces. Okay, I'm going to grab a design board. And I'm going to place these on the design board exactly as they are shown or as they are laid out. All right, just like that. All right, now's the fun part because we get to shuffle these up. So I'm going to peel off this paper. It just comes right off. You could reuse these. It'd be tricky, but you could do it, I think. All right, so it should look like this. The next step is so much fun because we're going to shuffle these up. For the trunk, we're going to take the top layer and we're going to put it on the bottom. For the tree, we're going to take the first 2 layers and put it on the bottom. Just like that. So now this is all mixed up already. We're going to just go right to the sewing machine and sew. We're going to start by sewing the stem or the trunk here to these sides, and then I'll show you also how to sew these and get it all together because it is angles and it is a little weird and it will all come together beautifully though. Oh, can't wait. There is something else you want to pay attention to. I'm going to move this out of the way for a minute, and that's directional fabric. These 3 all came from the same stack. And you can see I did use directional fabric with this. I wouldn't recommend this for your first set. Just get used to it. You might even want to use scraps for your first one to make sure you know what you're doing with it because it can get tricky. You don't want to mix anything up and have something going a different way. I mean, it's not hard, but for example, if I would have started out with this particular fabric going this way, I would have had a tree with it going that way, if that makes sense. So just pay attention to directional fabric. This is also a directional print, so you want to make sure that when you're putting the stem together that you keep the sides correct. I don't think any of these have real directional prints, so I don't think we have to worry about it. They don't. So we don't have to worry about that with this one, but you might have to with this. So just keep it in mind, depending on what fabric you use. All right, let's get to sewing now. I'm at my machine and it's time to sew. So we're going to start with the stem unit. I keep calling it a stem. It's not a stem, it's a trunk, but you know what I mean. Typically I just sew all 3 and chain stitch them, just put them one after another through the machine. But because I'm teaching you this and I really want to be clear with my instructions, I'm going to do one at a time. All right, let's do it. So I'm going to start by taking one of the trunk units, placing it right sides together just like that on the side background unit. And I'm going to stitch. And I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I think the directions say a scant. You don't need a scant. At least in my experience, you don't need a scant. Honestly, so forgiving. So we're just going to stitch this. And like I said, I'm walking you through this very slowly. You would have probably a better rhythm as you get going, but we're just slowing it down a little. All right, so now that it's sewn, I'm going to just set my seam, and then I'm going to press towards the darker side. This piece right here. Next, I'm going to take this piece and put it right sides together, lining it up as best as possible. I like to line up the top. We have the pinked edges at the bottom. And I'm going to sew this side the exact same way that I sewed the other side. Set the seam and press towards the trunk. And you already have the trunk unit done. Right there. All right, let's do the top. All right, so the directions say to sew this to this unit to this unit. And you know what? I'm gonna get these other pieces out of the way for now because I think it can be confusing. So now what we're going to do is we're gonna lay this on top of this. And it should line up. If it doesn't, again, don't stress too much, but it should line right up there. And I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch down that side. Again, set the seam, and then I'm going to press towards the tree unit, the body of the tree. Okay, so now this is where it gets a little tricky. I have this unit, it is not even, and it's a little uncomfortable because it's not even. It's like, what happened? What did I do wrong? And you could play with this and place it differently, but in reality, one of them is going to be off, if not both, because of the shapes. Not a big deal. Now you could just go ahead, put this next one on, and sew your 1/4 inch seam allowance. However, I find that to be trickier than what I'm going to show you to do. So what I have been doing is taking this unit. You probably don't need a ruler this big, but it's the one that I have right here. And I'll line this up and trim that off. If you're nervous about even that, you can take your piece, your number 5 piece, and lay that along here so you know you get a good angle, which let's do that. I could iron it on too if I wanted to. And all I'm going to do is trim that down. Just like that. And now it's even, ready for the next piece. Now, we still have this down here at the bottom that isn't even, which we will address too in the next step. All right, let's sew the next piece. And I'm just going to lay this, should fit just like that. And you can see even it's a little bigger. It's okay. And then I just put it a 1/4 inch over a little bit on the top. Again, doesn't really matter. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch. Take this out, set the seam, I'm going to press to the dark. You can finger press first and press it. All right, so we have this unit done now. We have the trunk unit done. We're going to put them together. Now if you want to, you can do the exact same thing with this bottom of the tree unit because it also doesn't line up completely. I did do pretty good at the top, but it's not going to matter. I keep saying that because it's not. All right, so I'll just trim this up. Okay, trim that up so it's straight. If you need to trim this up so it's straight, you can do that. Mine's pretty good. I'm just going to leave it. All right, now I'm going to place this unit, the trunk unit, on top. So I'm just putting them right sides together just like that, and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance down this way. And then the magic happens when we trim it. Okay, so we're going to set our seams and then press. Get that better. It doesn't matter which way you press. Although when you're putting the blocks together, you may want to nest the seams. You might have to repress a block, maybe make it go the other direction. But for this step and for trimming it up, it's not going to matter. And there you have it. There's your block. Oh, so cute. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these in the 3-set series. 3-set? I want to say series. Whatever. In the 3-set. And then I will move things around and show you how we trim this block up to get our final block. Yay! Okay, the blocks are done. They're ready to be trimmed down. And I really could have picked better colors, a better set for this, but you know what? It is what it is. I have other blocks done and I will show them as well. when we go to the design board with these. But first I want to show you how to trim these up. Now, the last time I showed you on a rotating mat, and this time I'm going to show you on just a small mat that I have. And the reason I have this is because it's an old mat. You can see how messed up it is. And I just flipped it over and I had my husband cut it down, but you could cut it down too. And that's what I'm going to use because you can turn this too. So you don't have to invest in a rotating mat. Now this gets a little tricky. We'll do this one. I was thinking something might show up on camera better, but I think this will be best. Okay, so what we're going to do is trim this down. It's a little wonky. Some will be wonkier than others. You could, if you really wanted to, trim the bare minimum and that would be fine. However, your stems might be a little longer, your top might be a little higher, and they won't line up when you put them together. Totally up to you. I like them uniform, so we're going to trim them down to the 8.5 inch squares that they suggest or that the pattern calls for, or whatever. To do that, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to line it up like this, and you're going to let me get my pointer here, seam ripper. You're going to put the 6.25 inch line right on the line that separates the top and the trunk. Okay, so you can see that here. This is 6.25 inch. Next, you're going to make sure that you're 4.25 inch over, and it goes right to that point right there. So just like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4.25, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.25, and these two sides are what we're going to cut. I know there's a lot of waste. I do have a video on how to use micro scraps if you're interested, but I like them uniform. It's just me. Trim this side, and we're going to trim this side. All right, next, we're going to take the top right corner and we're going to put it to the bottom left corner. Now we're going to measure over 8.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5, and 8.5 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. It's all lined up. That point should be at the 4.25. Everything should line up nicely, and trim. Just like that. Now, if I wanted to turn the mat, which I went through all that and didn't even show that, you can just turn it like this because it's small enough to do that. So it's a great use of an old mat too. All right, and then you just do the same thing. So I'm going to show it on another one. And you can see this is really like wonky. All right, so I'm going to do 6.25. Now on this ruler, this is a 12.5 inch Creative Grids ruler. The 6.25 inch line is marked because it's the center line, but you might not have that on your ruler. So just measure down 6.25, and we're going to go over 4.25, make that point of the tree here. Make sure that line's straight. That's all we're really worrying about. Cut these two. Okay, I'm gonna turn the whole thing like I should have. Just gonna turn it like this. We know that these sides are straight, so they're gonna be lined up at the 8.5 inch mark. There we go. And one more, and I'll do it real quick, speed it up. And there you have it, the 3 blocks. You're going to do that with the rest of the sets until you get a whole stack like this. And I think I said at the beginning that you can cut them all 42 blocks, and then stack them. I did do that with this set. It got so confusing because once I got mixed up, I was really mixed up, had to resort them, the whole thing. But you can see my design board here. It has them all stacked up. I caution you, however, at least if you're like me, I didn't stay organized and it got all wonky and the seam ripper came into play. I'll just say that. So doing them with 3 is much easier. All right, let's take these to the design board and play with them a little bit, and I'll show you how you lay them out. Okay, here it is all laid out. Well, sort of. My design board's not big enough for the full scope of this, so I did 5 across and 6 down. So we do need another row over here and another row down here if we were going to follow the pattern. But at least you get an idea of what it looks like. How pretty. You could add sashing, you could make table runners, you can make pillows, you can do all kinds of different things with it. I love it. So I do have more blocks. I wasn't a fan of these. They were a little busy for me. Whoops, upside down. They were a little busy. So I might mix in some from the other set, layer cake set, and make some more. I also am thinking about ordering some more fabric of this line. I love it. And maybe doing the borders on it. I'm not sure. If you want to find out how this all turns out, make sure to follow along. I do have a monthly series called Quilting Habits, and each month I update you on the things I've been doing and the habits that I have throughout the year. So you definitely can check that out, and I will definitely update in that. I also have a blog, website, social media, all that stuff too, under Sew the Distance. So make sure you follow along. I love it, I love it, I love it. I hope you enjoyed this too. I hope you give those papers a try. They're a lot of fun. And just share it with a friend and just, I don't know, make some projects. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.